Move to the hearing on behalf of the nomination of Tina W. Cafaro of East Long Meadow, Massachusetts. And the governor indicates in his letter, I am pleased to nominate Tina W. Cafaro to the position of Associate Justice of the District Court. I submit this nomination for the advice and consent of the Executive Council pursuant to Part 2, Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. At this time, would everybody who's going to testify, please raise your right hand. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in the matter now before the council for hearing. Thank you.
I do.
Our first witness today is no stranger to the Governor's Council. He's appeared here many times, first as a nominee and now as the justice and first justice of the Westfield District Court, and an associate of mine when I served on the bench. It's a pleasure to see you, Charles, and I would invite you at this time to make any statements on behalf of the nominee.
All right. Thank you very much. So first, let me say thank you, Mary, and I understand you're not running again. That is a loss for us, but congratulations on your fantastic tenure and your career, and I hope you enjoy whatever the next phase of life will be for you very much. You've earned it. I want to say good morning to the counselors. Those of you that were there when I was able to make it through, thank you very much for your support. It's changed my life. It's been fantastic. I thank you every single day. And for those of you that weren't there, it's an amazing opportunity and obligation that you have to shape not only the judiciary, but the culture of our Commonwealth. So I commend you for that. And good morning to Attorney Cafaro and her family. What a fantastic moment this is for her and for them. I recognize how hard they have all worked together to support and encourage her, because nobody does anything this monumental and accomplishes something like this without the support, love, and encouragement of their family. So congratulations to all of them. I've known Tina for about 25 years, and we literally came up together. And I remember when she was in the DA's office, and I was a bar advocate, and so we practiced together. I recall when she got the opportunity to be a professor at the law school, and then I also became an adjunct professor at the law school, and we would meet often, bump into each other in passing, and talk about our careers and the paths and our lives, etc. I remember seeing her then when she took over the clinic, and the amazing job she did, both when I was still a defense attorney and I may have handled a case or two with her students in the clinic, and then, of course, in the last 10 years on the bench when she brought her students in. I told her the other day when I asked her to send me some materials about herself that I really had no idea how accomplished she actually is. And I meant that in all sincerity. You know somebody and you see their path and you see their journey and what they've been able to accomplish, obviously, but you're working hard too at the same time. So it's rare that you get a chance to take a step back and take a look at what you may have accomplished, but then to look at what she has done and to see it in writing, it's fantastic. Both her experience as a practitioner, well, first her academic achievement, when she was in law school and undergrad, and then as a clerk for the legendary Kent Smith, which I was not aware, in the appellate court, and then her track record as a district attorney, her time at the law school as a professor, and all the publications, the law review publications, and the authorship, and the presentations, the teaching, not only of students, but of professionals in the field, and then the practice too at the same time. And then the community piece, shaping and molding young people in her community through sports and extracurricular activities. It's absolutely fantastic. I think she's going to be an outstanding colleague. The perspective she brings as far as both the academic and the practical is very unique. I know her as a person. Her temperament is outstanding, fantastic. She takes her obligations very seriously, but not herself as serious, and I appreciate that. I share in that particular philosophy. And I'm excited to be able to see what she'll be able to do to play this critical role in the community to bring this product that we really believe in, which is justice, because she's just had this myriad of experiences that I think is going to enhance that product and benefit any community that she's able to sit in.
Thank you very much. At this time, Councillor Ferrara is with us by phone. I'll introduce the councillors now. We have Councillor Jubinville, Councillor Marilyn Petito Devaney, Councillor Terrence Kennedy, Councillor Eileen Duff, and Councillor Paul DePalo. And at this time, do any of the councillors have any questions of Judge Gross?
I do.
Councillor Jubinville.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge. How's everything in the Westfield District Court?
Oh, it's fantastic. You know, I'm in Springfield today, right? Because I have drug court today. And it's great to come back and see all the folks that I miss and love and have worked with. I don't miss the place though. I'm pretty happy out in Westfield. It's very nice. I needed a change to give me some administrative experience and a different perspective. So I'm very grateful for that. Westfield's a fantastic court. Thank you very much.
Yeah, are you getting back to normal out there with this pandemic issue?
Yeah, we are. Actually, I'm sitting here and Springfield's doing jury trials today. So,
Good.
yeah, I was just talking with Judge Murphy and we're talking about an interesting issue, a jury instruction issue. And it's nice to have that, to have those juices flowing and to be able to talk about stuff like that, independent of like safety precautions and distance and these sorts of things. It's nice to get back to the work that we do. Yes.
How's my friend, the clerk, Nate Burns, doing out there?
I love Nate Burns. I mean, the guy, it allows me, Mr. Jubinville, to just be a judge. They run a system out there that is fantastic. So yeah, he's amazing. And they have a great team out there. Tom McLeod, Nate Burns, Judy, Chadwalla, they have an amazing team out there. And the probation, the chief, they're amazing.
Well, say hi to Nate and thank you very much for your testimony. It means a lot to me. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Anyone else have any questions?
I do.
Councillor Devaney?
Thank you. Thank you, Judge, for taking the time. We appreciate your testimony. How long has it
Absolutely.
been that you've been serving?
My 10-year anniversary is coming up, madam, in May.
How many?
My 10-year anniversary is coming up in May.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Tell me, if you could just give one adjective to describe Attorney Cafaro, what is that attribute that she brings to the bench that will mean so much?
Patient. Patient. I think patient is the adjective I would describe, because to have taught, to have coached, to have nurtured, to have encouraged, to have supported, to have helped to raise a family, to have done all these amazing things that she's been able to do, to have clerked and advised and all those things, you have to have patience. You have to have patience. And that's one thing her and I have talked about that I think is a wonderful attribute that she has, that I think she's going to bring. And that's something that we judges forget, you know, and I think that it definitely can rub folks the wrong way. We're sometimes forgetful that even though this is another case for us and it's critically important, it may be the most important thing that's going on in that person's life at that moment. And that's something that sometimes in the crush of business can get past us at times. We are human. But when we remind ourselves of all of the things that we've done in life where people have been patient with us, we have not been able to get where we are without the assistance of someone else. And I think it grounds us and humbles us and allows us to do this job that we are blessed to be able to do. So I know, looking at Tina and having talked to Tina and watching her with her students, that patience is something that I know she will bring.
Is there any particular case that comes to mind that you were impressed with her?
I could, you know, I am getting old, and without the assistance of documentation, That's, you guys are wonderfully preserved. Are you kidding me? You haven't changed the
Is the right word.
Y'all look fantastic. No, I wouldn't do that. I mean, I certainly do remember, I remember times when, the students really want to, when you're at 303, you want to litigate, you want to go to the mat. You just want to, that it doesn't matter really what quote unquote the right thing to do is. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but you just want to get your experience. And I think what I've seen Tina do is at times say to the student, hey, we really don't have it. Okay, we really don't have it here. And so maybe a lesser included, or perhaps a dismissal even, or let's resolve it in some other way. And so teaching the potential attorney, the future attorney, the value of resolution, of compromise, of negotiation is something that I recall her seeing her do many times, many times. They don't get the best cases in the clinic. They get the cases that they get, and they're there to learn. Advocacy is something that everybody wants. We see that as the hallmark of being a lawyer. But counsel is something that's also critically important, to be able to give counsel. And I think she does that. I've seen her do that on numerous occasions. And I've always admired that and appreciated it, especially from the bench, because we're looking for lawyers to also work things out as well. Despite what the public might think, everything does not get litigated. Most things don't get litigated. Most things get resolved, and rightfully so. And so I've seen her do that specifically, and I recall that, although I could not give you a specific case.
Well, thank you. It's a tribute to the nominee to have you testify. Thank you.
That's very
Anyone
kind of
else?
you. I appreciate that.
Anyone else have any questions? All right, thank you very much, Charles. It's a pleasure seeing you as always. And
Okay.
I may be on the back nine of life, but I still want to play the game. So have a great day.
Shoot a low score, my friend. That's what matters. Good luck to you.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you. Our next witness will be Hector Zavala, who was a former assistant district attorney and is now an assistant clerk in Springfield District Court. Hector,
Morning, Councillor Hurley.
good morning.
Morning,
You can
Council.
take that off.
Oh, thank you. That's a little better. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and speak on behalf of Attorney Cafaro. My name is Hector Zavala. I'm an assistant district, I'm not an assistant district attorney. That was a few years ago. I'm an assistant clerk magistrate in the Springfield District Court. I'm here to speak on behalf of Attorney Cafaro and in support of her nomination to the District Court bench. I believe Attorney Cafaro is an outstanding candidate. And I believe she possesses all the qualities that one would want in a jurist. She's intelligent, she's knowledgeable in the law, she's professional, she's compassionate, she's humble. I first met Attorney Cafaro about 18 years ago when I was an intern at the Hampden County District Attorney's Office while I was in undergrad. That's when I first learned how truly incredible Attorney Cafaro is. I began my legal career at the District Attorney's Office, and throughout the years, in the Springfield District Court, I've had the pleasure of working with Attorney Cafaro in my different roles. As a victim witness advocate in the DA's office, I had the pleasure of working with Attorney Cafaro on several cases. Quite honestly, I was always excited when she took on a case that I was assigned to, because I knew that she would be working very hard towards the prosecution of those cases, but would be very hands-on and very involved with also addressing and working with the victims and witnesses, making sure that they were aware of what their rights were, that they knew what the status of the case was, and that their voices were being heard. As a young prosecutor myself, I looked up to Attorney Cafaro, and I strived to be just like her when I became an attorney. She always appeared in court prepared for her scheduled cases, and was always available to assist myself as a young prosecutor and other prosecutors in the office as well. She not only worked with her students again, but she made herself available to any of us in the office and was always willing to grab a file and handle a case herself. Yes, she's a clinical professor, but throughout the years, she has definitely shown and demonstrated that she is a true litigator. I always found myself watching her in action and taking notes. She always would treat everyone and continues to treat everyone with compassion, humility, and respect. She's gained the respect of her colleagues. She's gained the respect of all of the court personnel, the defense bar, and members of the public. As an assistant clerk magistrate, I regularly see Attorney Cafaro in court, as I'm usually assigned in the arraignment session where she comes in with her attorneys, with her students. I see her working directly with the students and assisting them in preparing bail arguments, detention arguments. I've seen her assist in the session where she grabs cases and handles them herself when the need is required. When defendants are self-represented, I see her interactions with the defendants, when she's always been appropriate and professional. She has shown me throughout the years how she can be fair and impartial, and in turn, making her a truly deserving nominee for the district court bench. I'll be glad to answer any questions that any of you may have.
Thank you, Hector. Any questions of this witness?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, Tracy Magdalene, who has been an attorney, a defense attorney for certainly a number of years. I won't say how many, Tracy. It's good to see you
Thank you,
again.
Judge Hurley. I appreciate that. I'm going to
Um,
remove my mask as well.
Absolutely. And Tracy was with the Public Defenders, now CPCS, and whatever the new name of the month is for them. She was the second in charge, so to speak, and always did a great job, and was somebody that when I was sitting on the bench, I could rely on her representations, and she was someone to be admired and respected. So what would you like to tell us, Tracy?
Well, first of all, I want to say good morning to everyone. Judge Hurley, thank you for those kind sentiments. I appreciate that. Good morning.
The mic.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I prepared a written statement, which I don't like to read, but I'm so nervous. I don't want to leave anything on the table. So forgive me if I
Making you
read from
nervous?
this. Yeah. When Tina asked if I
Trying
would
really
testify,
hard.
I said, as long as they're not going to shine a flashlight in my face, I'll do it. Let me begin just by saying that it is a real pleasure to be here today. I've never done this before, and I feel honored. I want to congratulate Tina on her nomination, and I too want to echo Judge Gross's sentiments. It is a family affair, and so I want to congratulate her family and her friends for seeing her through this process and helping her get to this day. And finally, if I may be so bold, I would like to congratulate Governor Baker. In my opinion, he's made a brilliant choice. My name is Tracy Magdalene. I live in Western Massachusetts. I worked at the Committee for Public Counsel Services. It is still CPCS for 16 years, the Public Defender Division at the Springfield office. I was a trial attorney for about 6 of those years, and then I moved up to a supervisor position for about the last dozen years or so, which is to say that I supervised new attorneys who are coming in and learning how to lawyer. And it was our office that served one of the busiest courthouses, as Judge Hurley knows, in the Commonwealth. And it is there that I met Tina Cafaro some 16 years ago. I want to add that I don't really know Tina in a personal capacity. And what I mean by that is we don't go out for coffee, or we don't go out to dinner, and we don't go out to the movies or anything like that. My relationship with Tina, and it is a relationship, centers around our professional lives. But that relationship has always enjoyed a sort of silent understanding that we know one another's lives, that we know one another's joys and heartaches, and we certainly know one another's characters. Tina is responsible for having turned out some of the finest attorneys from her clinic over at the law school. She taught them how to properly litigate a case. She taught them to concern themselves with ethics and with a strong sense of fairness. My point here is, in order to be a good in order to teach someone to be a trial attorney, to be a good trial attorney, in order to teach someone to concern themselves with ethics and the integrity of our justice system, one must actually be good at it. One must actually be concerned with ethics and with the integrity of our justice system. Otherwise, we would be paying mere lip service to what it is we do and who it is that we serve. And Tina did not pay lip service to anyone or anything. She knows how to prepare a case. She knows how to try a case, having done so hundreds, if not thousands. I mean, I don't know the number, thousands of times. She was aware of the enormous responsibility that comes along with every single criminal matter. And her sense of integrity was at the forefront of every interaction I've ever had with her. She took her job seriously, but she also took her job with, and did her job with a sense of empathy, compassion, and humanity. I mean, these are all wonderful words, and we all think that we know what they mean without really thinking about what they mean. And so I've thought about what they mean, and she has those qualities. On my last case with Tina, we were standing, it was day of trial. We're standing out in the hallway. This was just a couple of years ago. We're standing out in the hallway as in Springfield. Like I said, I don't know if anyone's visited there. I know, Council, you have, but papers are flying and people are running around and yelling is going on. And it's day of trial. I'm ready to go to trial. My client is ready to go to trial. Tina's ready to go. Her witness is there. And we went out in the hallway to talk, as attorneys always do. She actively listened to what I had to say. She looked at the entirety of the case, not just the facts of the case, the alleged facts, I might add, not just the facts of the case, not just the so-called crime, the name of the crime, because that changes things. How someone is charged changes things. She looked at the entire case, the perspective of her complainant, the perspective of my client and her new baby, and the circumstances that brought them there together that day. As a result of her ability to do that, the case resolved in a way, and I'm not easy to please as defense attorney, right, Hector? Where are you? Right. We've had a few cases together as well. I'm not easy to please, but we all left the courthouse that day with a strong sense and belief that justice had been served. What more can we ask for from those who are going to serve us in a judicial capacity? I can't tell you how many cases I've had or that my supervisees have had with Tina. There are too many to count. But I can say that in one regard, we dreaded it. Where'd she go? Judge Hurley, is she there? Okay. We dreaded it. And the reason why is because we knew that our adversary, Tina, was going to be beyond prepared. She was going to know the facts of the case. She was going to know the governing law, and she was going to know the rules of evidence. Defense counsel had to be on top of their game. And we should be anyway. We should be anyway, always. But with her on the other side, we knew that we had better be on top of our game. We cannot rest on our laurels. In another regard, though, we looked forward to it. We knew that we would be treated with professionalism. We knew we would even have a somewhat pleasant experience, and we can't say that very often. When you know, this idea of an adversarial profession takes on different meaning when you're screaming at the top of your lungs with one another. Well, you see that unfolding in the courtrooms across the Commonwealth. We knew we were going to have a pleasant experience litigating the case with her and with her team. She never acted out of anger, not once. She never lost her patience, and I had given her plenty of opportunity to do that, I can tell you, as Judge Hurley can tell you, right? And she never acted with arrogance, ever. It was never personal with Tina. She wasn't detached either. I'm not going to get emotional. She cared very deeply about serving justice to the people of the Commonwealth. And she never one time looked at defense counsel or as a defendant as the enemy, as bad people. We had a conversation, I don't know, I went into the law school, this was some years ago, and a recent conversation, I don't even remember having said it. And Tina echoes this now in her professional life, where I had once commented, we are not the worst thing we've ever done. And she follows that line of thinking now. And that is precisely the kind of person we would want serving us in a judicial capacity. Someone who sets and demands a high bar for excellence, but whose demand is kind and is patient and is understanding. And Tina Cafaro is that person. She was quick to wit, even enjoyed it, started it herself a few times. She was confident and enough as a person and as a litigator to know that she doesn't always know, and to double check her understanding of things. In this profession, that kind of humility is hard to come by, let's face it. To say that our profession would be served well by her would be an understatement. I truly believe that Tina Cafaro is the best choice that Governor Baker could have made. I thank you for your time. I have a tendency to go on and on.
Mary, Terry,
Thank you. Does
Thank
anyone have any questions of Attorney Magdalene?
Mary, Terry Kennedy.
Councillor Kennedy?
I'm glad I'm a defense lawyer because I wouldn't want to be on the other side.
She's good. Well, thank you, sir.
Mary,
Yes, Bob Jubinville.
thank you. So I think she's gonna owe you and Joe Franco and a few others a dinner now. If I'm in Springfield, I'll go to it. Okay. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
This
Anyone
was
else?
the easiest statement I ever had to write. No dinners are necessary. Thank you.
Anyone
It's
else?
not easy for counsel to write for prosecutors.
Any other questions? My only comment is, I hope you go back to doing what you were doing or even contemplate, and I don't know how old you are, and I'm not asking, but you would make a hell of a judge as well. So
Thank you, Judge. I took an early retirement. My dad got sick. And so.
I know, and
Yeah,
God
I
bless you
took
for
care of
that. But even if you're retired, you can always, get a second career like I did, or a third or fourth. So,
I think there's an opening on the governor's council, isn't there?
yes, there is.
And my dad as well, so it's smooth sailing.
There you
Thank
go.
you, Judge.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We could use
And
someone.
is there anyone else who wishes to speak in
Thank you.
favor of this nominee?
Oh,
Anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition, or anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? I didn't think there would be. So, Attorney Cafaro, it's now time for you to give your opening statement. And before you do that, I would ask you to introduce your family and friends who are there with you today.
I would love to. Apparently, I've brought all of Western Mass with me today to meet you. I want to start by introducing my mom and dad. This is Russ Ann and Joseph Westcott. And then my husband, Michael Cafaro, 27 years married, my biggest supporter, and our 3 children, Nicholas, who's 23 and graduated in May from college, my daughter, Sarah, who's 22 and is in her first year of law school, and the baby, who's not a baby anymore, my daughter, Alyssa, who's 18 and is a freshman in college. Along with them today is my sister, Carrie, and Carrie Westcott, and then I'm going to keep bouncing around. I'm almost done. My aunt, Wendy Colty, and her children, Jared, who is a senior at UMass Boston, so thought this was a great learning experience and looking as applied to law schools for the fall. I was the first, but apparently they're coming up behind me now. And then my cousin, Michaela. And then finally with me is my colleague and the Director of Clinical Experience at Western New England, and my lifetime friend since we started, Lauren Karasik.
Thank you.
Okay, I didn't forget anyone. I was just making sure.
At this time, you can make your opening statement.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the council. I'm humbled and honored to be sitting before each one of you today as you consider my nomination as an Associate Justice in the District Court. I'd like to thank Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito for the honor of this nomination, and Robert Ross, Lauren Green, the members of the JNC and its staff, the members of the Governor's Counselor staff, including Valerie McCarthy, and I would like to thank the Joint Bar for the time and effort that you've put into the process that has landed me here today. I also want to thank Judge Gross, Clerk Zavala, and Attorney Magdalene for taking time out of their schedule to speak on my behalf today. And I really want to thank my family, my friends, and my colleagues for traveling all the way from Western Mass to support me. Most of all, I want to thank you, counselors, for the dedication you show to this process, to the time you've afforded me, and discussing my qualifications for this awesome position. And I especially thank Councillor Hurley for hosting this hearing today. I'm one of the fortunate ones. Today is not the only day in my life where I have received support from my family. I grew up in a hardworking, middle-class family that, for the most part, dedicated itself to public service. My maternal grandmother was a shining role model of what it means to dedicate your life to helping others. She was the first executive director of the Council on Aging in East Long Meadow. I remember spending hours helping her organize food drives, talent shows, and craft projects for the elderly in town. When she began the Meals on Wheels program, I set out with my aunt and my sister and helped deliver hot meals to elderly and other members of our community who could not cook and provide for themselves. From my grandmother, I learned that a woman can be compassionate and committed to helping others, while at the same time being a leader and a trailblazer. From my parents, I learned that you need to set priorities, work hard, and help others along the way. My father is a retired police officer. He spent 32 years protecting and serving the people in East Long Meadow. I have an immense respect for the job that he did and the role he had in our community. I also admire his desire to learn and grow. While working full-time with 2 young daughters at home, he went to college and earned his bachelor's degree, becoming the first in his family to do so. He taught me to be strong, independent, and to work hard for what I wanted. My mom took a different path. Starting as a stay-at-home mother, she devoted her time to raising my sister and me. She taught me to be confident, kind, and compassionate. Her motto was always, treat other people the way you want to be treated. If we heard that once, we heard it a million times. And she lives her life that way too. When she began working outside of the home, she took a job in the cafeteria at the East Long Meadow High School. You might think her nickname was Lunch Lady, but it wasn't. It was Mom. Because on any given day, 100 kids would walk through that cafeteria and yell, "Hi, Mom," and everyone in there knew who they were talking to. And she earned this nickname because she took care of everyone. If someone forgot their lunch money, she gave money to them. Sorry, Dad, you're probably not supposed to know that. If someone couldn't afford lunch, she bought it for them and then made sure to get them signed up for the school's lunch assistance program. My sister's a retired police dispatcher. She's earned several commendations for her skill and compassion in dealing with people in her community during the most traumatic moments of their lives. So it probably came as no surprise to anyone when I joined the district attorney's office. I started in the domestic violence, child abuse, and sexual assault unit. Over my career in the DA's office, I have handled thousands of every type of case and hundreds of trials in one of the busiest courts in Massachusetts, the Springfield District Court. Over the past 25 years as a litigator, I've developed a keen awareness of the issues that are seen daily in the district court. I'm aware of the toll addiction and mental health issues take on an individual and the community. I understand the need to encourage rehabilitation and to protect a defendant's constitutional rights. I'm also aware of the need to protect victims and members of the public and to deter criminal activity. Now more than ever, I know that all people in the justice system, judges included, must be cognizant of implicit bias and not allow those biases to affect their decisions. After I married my husband and had 3 children, I took on the role of clinical professor of law. This position allowed me to keep litigating cases while giving me more flexibility in my schedule to raise my family. I suspect that some of you may wonder what a clinical professor does. Law schools have different ways of running clinical programs. At Western New England, I not only teach the classroom component of the prosecution clinic, but am sworn in as a special assistant district attorney and regularly accompany my students to court. They learn by watching and doing. They watch as I and other attorneys argue bails and conduct motions in trials. They participate in the litigating or the doing when I assign them cases to work under my direct supervision and under my bar license. I am an active supervisor, consulting with them as they prepare the case, standing with them as they present the case, contributing to the presentation as needed, and then debriefing them afterwards. In 2015, I realized there was a need to offer a defense practicum at the law school. The law school allowed me to take a sabbatical for 6 months so I could gain experience representing indigent clients in criminal cases. I was able to work with local bar advocates on indigent cases. This was an eye-opening and rewarding experience. For the past 6 years, I've run the defense practicum each spring and teach students the skills they need to go into court and help them understand and apply the law to ensure that their clients' constitutional rights are protected. Each role I took in the legal system, from judicial law clerk, from the wonderful Judge Kent B. Smith, to trial attorney, to professor, has prepared me to become a judge in the district court. And I'm so very honored and humbled with this opportunity to make my ambition come true. I understand what an awesome responsibility each one of you has in evaluating my qualifications and deciding whether to confirm me. And I look forward to answering any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll have questions now from councilors. Councilor Ferrara, do you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Ms. Cafaro and I had an extensive conversation the other day. I think she's extremely well suited for the job. You know, we don't often see someone with quite a resume like hers having almost equal time on the prosecution side and defense side. And she's been an immeasurable mentor to so many people. And she has a respect and admiration from Councillor Hurley, who I deeply admire. And you definitely have my vote next week. And Councillor Hurley, I want to congratulate you for all the work you did for your people out west, getting seats filled and doing a tremendous job, bringing us insight with your knowledge, training, and experience that was unmatched. So I want to thank you for your years of service. It's been a pleasure working with you, my friend.
Thank you, Councilor Ferrara. I think of myself as being on the back nine, but I still want to play the game. So I'll figure out something else that I can do that will be a plus for the community.
Well,
Thank
my
you.
advice to you is after you're done with your back nine, save time for the 19th hole.
What you said?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions?
This is Councilor Duff, may I?
Absolutely.
Thank
Councilor
you.
Duff.
Thank you, Attorney. I had a delightful conversation with you. At least it was for me. I hope it was for you as well. And I felt like you did hear, you know, this comprehension, this hearing, this listening, which your witness said you're very good at. You know, a lot of the ideas that I have and that I am hoping we get from some folks on the bench, because I think that's how we solve these big, crazy problems with big, crazy ideas. And so thank you for listening to me and contributing to that conversation. I'm very interested in some of this work that you've done. Can you tell me, and I probably should know, but I don't, what is the Supreme Court's Judicial Youth Corp?
So that was a program that was started to bring in students from underprivileged schools to kind of like a pipeline to show them the legal aspect of the profession. And so as a professor, I was asked if they could bring in a group of students and if I would talk to them, explain.
Yes, except everything is gone dark. I've got no picture or anything. I don't mean to interrupt, but everything went blank. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
law there and criminal law. And I've been asked to teach domestic violence law, court procedures to the recruit classes. And I find it really, it's stimulating. It makes me stay updated on the law with the legal updates. I have to know when the law changes so I can teach it. And it gives me the opportunity to help shape the next generation of law enforcement in the manner that I hope that you can tell from what you've heard about me moves us forward to being a better law enforcement community that we have, but still showing them the respect that I believe they deserve for taking on a public service job that is dangerous and it's becoming more dangerous, but that there need to be changes with. And so I that's what I do for them. I teach them those areas of the law and interact with them. And then
That's great. Thank you. Well, I agree. I think again, in Eileen land, that our officers are asked to do things that frankly have nothing to do with policing. and we should be hiring other people to be social workers and in the field and doing that type of stuff, and let them use their professional experience to do it, and let officers be officers. We've put them in a quandary, and it clearly hasn't worked, right? Or it's not working in a lot of places, and it's problematic. And we don't use the right language, in my opinion, a lot of times to express ourselves and how we feel about this. But thank you for that work, because police officers are a critical part of our criminal justice system. And we need to work together hand in hand with them to have that mutual respect and let everybody do what their job really is supposed to be. And again, demonstrated today by having people, to me, there's nothing more powerful than having a witness sit there talking about why you should be a judge when they've opposed you on every single case they've ever done. That matters to me, because that means that you listened and you learned. And the most important thing anyone can do for me is change my mind. I love people that can change my mind, because it means that I've learned, right? And I think that's so important. You and I discussed some of my crazy ideas, or they're not crazy, they're unconventional. And in fact,
they're ambitious.
They're ambitious, but I think that's how I think that's the standard I should be held to, and that if you ascend to the bench, I will hold you to.
I appreciate that.
And I think we need to. I find it very offensive when the courts, including everyone who works in the courts in Massachusetts, and our judges are attacked by pundits who do not understand what their job is. I take that very personally. I find it personally offensive. There's a separation of powers, and it's important that we respect it. I don't need to understand why you make your decisions sometimes. If you're the judge, you're privy to information I am not. I might not like it. I might not agree with it. But that's why we're the United States of America. And that's why Massachusetts has the best court system in the country. Second to none. And I challenge anyone to go against me on that. So I'm not going to go on, because right now I'm just babbling, but I'm pontificating. This is my Irish Italian coming out. Thank you for your application. I think it's important that people are applying for these jobs, especially when there is such criticism against them. I think the courts have done a tremendous job pivoting during this pandemic. I know that some of them are, particularly the probate court, is overburdened right now. And it's a horrific situation all the way around. I deal with probate all the time. But I thank every single person in the court system for their service, because it's been very, very difficult. And one last thing, one last pontification. Councillor Hurley has been a tremendous advocate for Western Massachusetts in building your bench, in getting appointments made, and to replace that gosh darn courthouse that is a horrific display of whatever it is. I implore, publicly right now, I implore the delegation from Western Mass to get off their duffs and get the money to build a new courthouse in Springfield. It's not Judge Hurley's job to do that. She has done every single thing week after week after week that she can. I don't know where your senators and reps are on this, but they control the money. So show the people of Western Mass the money and get this done. For Pete's sakes, there's ARPA money out there right now. There is federal money to build this courthouse. So all of you from Western Mass, leave here, get on the phone, call your senators and reps and make them do it. Because it's outrageous. It's outrageous. I don't live there, but I think it's outrageous. So that's my speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. And I lost the video. The website went down for a minute or two, but fortunately I'm back to be able to run the meeting. I would indicate that many,
She's not aware that there's no sound, but when it went down, she asked me to take over if there was problems. She texted me. So I'll call on Council Jubinville next.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't have a lot. I have one little question. You have indicated a case you had. You co-prosecuted it with a student prosecutor. It was an OUI case,
Okay.
and you had an attorney, A.J. O'Donnell.
I did have AJ O'Donnell.
Yeah, and what happened with that case?
I wish I could say I won, but I don't remember if I did. I just, it was a while ago and I've tried a lot of OUI cases, but I know I've tried a lot of them against AJ O'Donnell. And if he's watching this, his head will get big. He's a really good attorney. And so I'm sure he put me through my paces in that case. I'm sure he did.
Called me, we didn't hook up. He called me a couple times last night. And
We did?
yeah, and I was with clients, so I couldn't get to him, but I assume it was to
He's a good attorney.
rate you, and his opinion is very important to me. Have you put in your application, you've been before Judge Mulcahy?
Numerous times.
Yeah. And what do you think of him as a judge?
He's fair. He has this really calm judicial temperament. He is patient and he's so respectful. And he is the type of judge that if an issue comes up and he's not sure what he wants to do on it, he'll take a recess, he'll think it over. You know you're going to get a fair shake
Yeah.
with him on the
Yeah,
bench.
I've been before him and I know him. He's wonderful. Well, you've got a lot of wonderful judges you put in here.
I've been
Yeah.
fortunate.
So
We do
what you
have
got to
a
do
good-
is follow what they do,
That's true.
okay?
Good role model.
And as I told you, Joe Franco, right away, as soon as you got nominated, called me, told me how wonderful you were. And
I appreciate that.
his opinion, I don't need more than that. So
Thank
I'll
you.
be voting for you.
Thank you.
Council Devaney.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for all the time you afforded me. It was really a pleasure to spend that time with you and to come that distance. But, as I said, Justice Island made that distance to meet me too. So I really appreciate that. First of all, I ask all the nominees your journey here, how you came. And first of all, you applied and was that in the Patrick administration?
He was.
Yeah. Okay. So how far did you go? Did you?
Made it to the governor's desk. I did not interview with the governor, but I made it, I was advanced from the chief legal counsel to the governor. And that
Wow.
was the end of his term and he did not run for reelection and I did not reapply until just
Yeah,
recently.
that happens. Sometimes a political person jumps the line too. So anyway, you made it this time and I'm very happy. Let's talk about the process now. So when did you go before the JNC?
I want to say it was in May.
May.
March or May, yeah, May, I think.
So you were up to the 18 months, were you?
Not quite. It's not been a year yet.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. So for the public, I like to let people know because they think we have so much authority up here. We really don't. Our authority is to vote yes or no. We don't know who applied. We just have one person. Now, every governor appoints 21 lawyers. And they have, what authority that they have. Unbelievable. They can choose who they want to interview, who they will reject, and ultimately to recommend to the governor a nominee. So there's 21. And I've been here 22 years, and all of these lawyers take it seriously, and they appear at your hearing. So tell me, out of the 21, how many were at yours?
I want to say that there was about 9 on Zoom and then 2 in the room. So
Okay.
I think is about 11.
Okay, this isn't for you. This is just informational. 21 people have the awesome responsibility to give someone a lifetime position, a clerk magistrate or a judge. So you have 11, 12 or more of them that didn't go to the hearing, didn't meet the nominee, never talked to them, and they vote a lifetime position. I say this for the public because I'm a big critic. I've talked to Lieutenant Governor and Governor about it. It shouldn't be. 21 people should be there because they have an authority that none of us have. Okay, so I've said that, so let that go. Okay, so now I just want to clear up something, and you're not the first one to do it, but there are questions that require a yes or no, and you put NA. You know, have you ever been sued? Not applicable. Have you in military? Not applicable. It's a yes or a no. So I just want, I'm not going to go through all of them because there's quite a
If it's
few.
not
But
applicable, it meant no.
if you ever have to, so if you ever have to write another application, there are yes or no questions, okay? So it's not important, really. But you have wonderful background. I mean, you've done everything. You have taught. You have, and I asked you this, and you couldn't even name. How many cases have you had in your career?
Thousands of
Imagine.
cases, hundreds of
Imagine that.
trials,
And how many trials?
hundreds.
And I don't have a poker face. I am so pleased that you got through. I like your age. And you're bringing life experience. I like all the time that you've helped people pro bono. And you've gone further than that for people who, there was one case that you had, and you have so many, that the woman had an addiction problem. And we got letters, and I'll refer to them. And one of the letters talked about you making a decision that allowed that woman to go on with her life, and she's been 10 years sobriety. Why don't you tell us about that one?
Wasn't operating under the influence. I don't remember if it was alcohol or drugs. There was an issue, I think, with whether or not the defendant's statutory rights had been given under Chapter 263 5A. I remember talking to defense counsel about the case and him giving me compelling reasons why this should not be something that goes to trial. There were issues with whether or not it would make it to trial anyway. But because of her addictions in her family life, her alcoholism, I think it was alcohol, she had already started treatment. She was going to meetings. She was in a program. By the time the trial day came, she was sober. And so I believe we came to a resolution that would allow her to continue on that path to rehabilitation. And 10 years later, apparently it was the correct decision.
Right. And we talked about this. I don't know. You must have got home when it was dark. No, did you?
It's dark.
But yeah, but I don't take responsibility. You went shopping on the way. Okay. But
Fall on
but but I you know but I do want to say that you know, as a mother, as a grandmother, you know, when I read these things about children and abuse and everything, it really touches my heart. And we talked about that in the society we live in, we can't let our children go door to door. And you had a case that was so incredible. A 12-year-old going door to door for the church, selling candy bars. And that man that he got to he said, I'll buy you candy if you carry my bike up to the 3rd floor. And he did. And he taped him and bound him and raped him a number of times. I can't even imagine the mother that he hadn't come home. Where is he? Worrying about him. So I've said more than I should have. I want you to tell us that story.
That was a case that I was asked to present to the grand jury. I didn't end up trying that case. It actually turned into a plea, and another very good Superior Court prosecutor handled that case from the grand jury on. But I was responsible for bringing in the witnesses, preparing them, and putting it through grand jury. And just as you said, he was selling candy bars, and the defendant, who was a sex offender but hadn't registered, enticed him into helping him bring his bike upstairs, and then did kidnap him and rape him. And his mother had called the police, and the people in the community were looking for him. He was let go. He did make his way home, told his family and the police what happened, and he brought them to the house where it occurred. And the police did go, and they did find all the corroborating evidence that the little boy had said they would find there. And he was arrested. And he did plea to that. And it did have an impact on me, because when my son wanted to sell candy bars door to door for, I don't remember if it was one of his sports teams or what it was, but he's shaking his head because he remembers the story. And I said, no, you're not going by yourself door to door, even in our community. He's like, he couldn't understand why I wouldn't let him. And I explained to him watered down version of that case on why I wouldn't let him. And he kind of looked at me in the car and said, oh, okay. And so it did have a big impact on me and my children, because
live in a different world. Tell me, is there some way that that they should be making sure that these people are on the sexual list?
well, that was one of the issues with this case, right? It drew attention, because he was also charged with failure to register as a sex offender. It drew attention to that issue. And the problem is, with the transiency of people moving around, you know, they're informed that they need to, if they move, they need to go and they need to report where they are. But I'm not entirely sure how to make that system better, or what safeguards are in place right now to make it better.
Yeah. So tell me about you instructing police. Tell me what is involved. How far do you go in the instruction?
So for the MPTC, the Mass Police Training Council, which is the statewide agency that runs all the local and city and towns. Some city and towns have their own police academy. Springfield does, I think Boston does. But the other ones, there are several of them throughout the state, and they have a unified curriculum. And so I go in with their curriculum and I teach it. There was a new curriculum a couple of years ago that there were some issues with. And so I was invited by the MPTC to reevaluate their curriculum and work with them, with a group, on making it more in line with what Massachusetts law is, easier to understand, pedagogically more sound, drawing on my experience of teaching for 21 years. Like, how can we present this information to these recruits so that they understand it better and flow, and then rewording it. And so I had the opportunity over the past year or two to help redesign or work on that curriculum, and then go into the classroom and teach it also.
Right. So in your position as clinical, what is the position called?
Professor.
Yeah. So what is involved in that position?
So that position involves me in the classroom 1 day a week for 2 hours. I teach my students usually a combination of trial skills, how to do an opening, a closing, a direct, a cross, introduce evidence, objections, as well as a little criminal law and procedure, ethics, professional responsibility. And we do that in the classroom. And then my students go into the workforce, and they, under SJC Rule 303, they prosecute or defend cases under the bar license of a licensed attorney in the prosecution clinic. That's me. Typically, sometimes they're with another ADA. And we teach them by doing. So they actually get assigned a case, and they prepare it with our supervision and help, and they go into court and they represent either their client or the Commonwealth.
In all the positions that you've had, what it's probably difficult, but which one gives you the most knowledge to be serving as a judge? What do you think has helped you to prepare you?
I think being a clinical professor, I'd have to say has, because it combined both of my worlds. It combined being a litigator, which I still get to do, something I love to do, with teaching, teaching hundreds at this point of students from a diverse background with
I
different.
think you said 250, remember? Yeah.
You know, when I thought about it, when I wrote that, a couple more semesters had gone by. So, and I teach other classes too, not just the clinic. So hundreds of students with different backgrounds and different learning styles, different abilities, and learning how to teach them and be patient and instill the values we want in them as attorneys who are going to go out and make an impact on the community. So I think the clinical professor for 21 years, while it may be a non-traditional route to get to the bench, really combined all the worlds that I think will make me a good judge.
Right. I'm impressed with the pro bono, how much you have done. And I've been here 22 years, and you don't see a 40-year-old with pro bono. You don't have time for that. And the council, not me, sent recently a 40-year-old to the Worcester Court, which is 90% criminal, who never saw a criminal case. And he was one of 13 assistant solicitors in a city hall office and worked in the sheriff's office. I'm not going to comment, okay? This is what we need. We need people like you. We don't need someone to learn the job and someone to teach him. And I talk to a lot of attorneys, and they say that we have some people that shouldn't be there. I'm very proud of the people I vote for. We get some good people that come through, but we still got the unqualified. We still have the political. I can't do anything about it. I'm only one vote. So I just want to tell you, this is, I don't know how much more I can say it, that they should look at the JNC and look at that, the chair. And I asked you, and I told you first, I said, you're probably sick of me saying this. And I always say, I would never vote for someone who didn't have compassion and empathy. And every nominee tells me, the chair Dacia asked one question at the hearing. Tell us what he asked you.
His question was, what's the definition of empathy?
Okay. So he's following my lead, but there's more questions to be asked, Mr. Chair. So anyway, but, we talked about the district court, and the people that I have voted for that I'm so proud of, they love it. And they all say it's the people's court. They don't want to go anywhere else, But I'll tell you, you have a writing ability that could be the Superior Court. There's no question. And and you have you've written a lot of articles, which is very impressive. And some of them made me kind of smile. And I'd like you'd explain to the rest of them, because we talked a long time. And you're a good listener to me with me too. But, you've had 400 trials. I mean, it's just incredible. Now, tell me about and this is the one writing in your articles that you said about, slipping through the cracks. Why can't we stop drug driving? And my concern is, it's one thing, and it doesn't always work to see if someone is really drunk, but with the marijuana, I don't know how they measure that. So tell us about what you wrote, because I loved it. I think it was really good.
Thank you. So when you become a professor, in order to get promoted from assistant to associate and associate to full, you have to research, write, and publish. So I was given advice to choose an area of the law that I had a lot of experience with and that I knew. And as a prosecutor in the district court, I've tried so many OUI cases. That was the area of law that I knew the best. So I chose that area of the law. And then I started trying to find issues that create, just as you said, like, you don't know, how do you prove that? Sadly, most people don't know how do you prove that right now, and that's one of the issues. So one of the thorny issues in impaired driving is, what do you do with a drugged driver? With an alcohol impaired driver, arguably you can do field sobriety tests, a breathalyzer, a portable breathalyzer, even though that's not admissible. And civilians, the court has said, basically they said everybody knows what somebody who's under the influence looks like, so it's easier to form an opinion. But when it comes to drug driving, there's no quantifying like that right now. There's nothing you can have somebody blow into or take a swab of, at least in the United States. In my research for that article, I've learned that in other countries, they do have some roadside saliva tests that they do. I don't know the efficiency of it. I wrote that article a long time ago.
And the other thing that you pointed out, that in every state it's different.
It is. There's
You
no
know?
like with OUI alcohol, there's a 0.08 per se BT that the federal government was able to get the states to do with their spending powers. We don't have that right now. And so states look at the OUI drug issue. Is it per se, just because you have some drugs in you, should you be convicted? How are we gonna, we have to get a blood test, but in Massachusetts, you can't order somebody to get a blood test, just like you can't make them take the breathalyzer, because they have the constitutional right not to give evidence against themselves. And so that was how that article began. And it's really not meant to be an advocacy piece so much as these are the issues across the country that we're dealing with. And it seems like because there isn't any uniformity and because we don't have really this set way of handling these issues, it's difficult to prosecute.
Right. I'm going to, these books and articles, publications that you've written, okay, you drink, you drive, you lose, or do you? So maybe you want to add anything else to that?
That's the same basic issue.
The same thing.
It was about, yeah.
The other one is fixing the fatal flaws in OUI implied consent laws.
Right. All OUI related, and discussing across the country what different states do and, you know,
Different rules.
different rules,
Yeah.
right, and that they're applied differently in different states.
Okay, so that was, trying to fix them. I don't know how you do that. And so I love this one. Is someone watching you?
That was a fun one. That was a very short one, but that was a fun one. That one came about because of what was happening with, do you remember a few years back with Airbnb? There was stories about people who are renting homes and they were putting hidden cameras in there and unsuspecting renters were being videotaped without knowing it. So that was the idea of that one. I was asked to write a short article for that point of view on, and it basically talks about the law on surveillance, whether you can video and audio tape rings. Not we all, but many people have rings now. What's the law regarding that?
I think the 20 years that you spent in the criminal law clinic adds so much to the bench. We don't see that very much when people are going to be a judge. And what do you think you're taking from that has been such a value?
I think just the intimate knowledge I know of that court, the people that it serves, that people coming in there are at maybe the worst moment of their life. A lot of times the district court is the first time anyone has had a brush with the courthouses in the district court. It's called the People's Court. I sometimes think of it as, and I date.
I've heard that
myself
so
by
often, yeah.
a MASH unit, right? Because so many things are going on at one time in there. And so I think that just the very volume of cases in the years I've been there has exposed me to how the court runs and the people it serves and how best to do that.
Do you think there's racial disparity in our courts?
I do.
You read the Harvard report?
Against it, I did.
Yeah. I saw that recently. We just had 2 commutations. And I read through the reams, 3 and 4 in the morning, a couple of weeks, I read each of them. And I met with each of these men at their prisons 2.5 hours. And when I went back to my car, I cried. Travesty of justice. These 2 men who happen to be Black, never had a Black or anyone of color at their trial. And what they have done, probably 1,000 inmates have learned from them, the programs that they put in. One of them went on and even got a job working for Mayor Walsh. They've all done well. And they said if it wasn't for them, they they wouldn't have been able to succeed in the outside. So I see this. And then I talked to you about this and I said, how do you explain giving someone life in prison without parole when they really weren't murdering someone? And then I read just recently this man who had multiple criminal events, that he had done this over and over. And what he did was he got a 13-year-old girl, he drugged her, he raped her, and watched her die. And the judge gave him 20 years. Where's the justice there? That's someone that should have life without parole. See, this is the thing. I have no control of it. I only can vote yes or no, and that's all. But I'm just saying that there's something wrong with our system. And I saw it with these two men. 30 years. And I suppose it's not only for someone's color. If people go back 25 years, Joe Savati, they try to hang, that he was involved with the mafia, which wasn't true. He wasn't guilty. 32 years before he was released. Thank God there are people who do come out and do help these people. So one of the men, Thomas Kuntz, his lawyer worked pro bono for him. So that's what I see in you. That's compassion. That's empathy. So, I can't change the system. I've got a lot of opinions though. But I just have to say that we need more people like you. And I don't want a 40-year-old that worked in a city hall and first sheriff. I want someone 52. I want that age. That's what we need. And I mean life experience. With the family, you've been involved, you've been a coach, you've done a lot of things in your life. And that's what you bring to that court, because you can identify in the people's court, the people, So, there's so many cases that we could go through that I was, it's just so impressive. And what I like too is that you have also, well, when you started out, what was your first position? Tell us.
For a legal position, with Judge Kent B. Smith in the appeals court as his law clerk.
Right.
Mentor.
Yeah.
An amazing man.
So, I mean, and you know what is impressive to me? The people who sent us letters, and I've said this before, and it's happened in my experience here, that we'll have a witness, and I'll say, have you seen this nominee in court? Once. Give me a break, but these people know you 26 years, 30 years. I voted for those wonderful judges, for Judge Grossi and retired Judge Gordon, 2001. I'm the only one sitting up here that voted for it. But, I'm proud of those people. And I document when I vote no, because I want people to know why I voted no. I just don't use a dartboard. It has to be a real reason. And I want qualified people. I want experience. I want the age. I want compassion and empathy. And you have it all. I couldn't be more pleased. And I'm going to tell you some of these letters. Now, one of them is retired Judge Gordon. And they're so long, I won't be able to read all of them, but he said he knew you firsthand, 20 years. And one of the things that in his letter that really I want to mention was how there was a case in there was, the opposing attorney was kind of wandering. And he really wasn't making sense, but you had the compassion and you had the empathy. And that's what Judge Gordon was saying. He said that Professor Cafaro approached me and stated that she had concerns for the defense attorney and that he was acting somewhat unusual before and during the trial. The next day, I called the defense attorney and told him of the concern that Professor Cafaro and I had for him during the trial and suggested that he seek medical attention. Within several weeks, don't cry because I'll cry, I was regrettably informed that the defense attorney had an inoperable brain tumor. He was admitted to a nursing home, passed away. I didn't want to do this, the two of us crying here, but this is what Judge Gordon sees in you. And, you know, you can't make this stuff up. He sees you displaying kindness, deep compassion, and a sincere belief in due process. And you alerted him to the situation, and true justice was done. I'm not going to read any more than I can, but then we got a letter from, I'm not going to pronounce this right, you know that, and it's Justice Etzeda Sanabria Vega, all right? And 26 years you've known each other. And when she started working as an assistant district attorney, and she found you to be a person of integrity and a role model for others. Her character, judgment, legal skills, and temperament would make a great addition to the district court. I wish I could read everything that these people have said. Now, Lauren Karasik, Associate Dean for Clinics, Clinical Professor of Law. 20 years she's known you. And she said that you were closely together and you're a gifted educator, supervisor, and mentor. Her teaching skills and classrooms present are unparalleled, and she is able to impart to her students her remarkable ability as an advocate. And your astute sense of fairness and justice and incisive critiques to work harder and always grow demonstratively throughout the semester. And she is poised, quick on her feet, and unfailingly civil. And your professional inside and out the courthouse. And so in the analytical skills, they all see the same qualities in you, which is wonderful. So also from Mary Heiser, and she has said that she's known you 19 years, and she observed you all through these years. And although you were a former prosecutor, you also were close with the defense bar. That's a nice balance, okay? So she said you're fair, you're impartial. Everyone says the same thing. And also she talked about your community work. You've coached youth in your town, soccer, basketball, lacrosse, and the youth team members appreciate the time, talent, and coaching. And the parents showed their appreciation to you as well. Off the fields, she has intelligence, sense of humor, dedication, and commitment to helping others, and highly recommend you. Deborah Roberge, and attorney, and she's known you 20 years, and she knew you from criminal court, and she said wonderful things about you, the same qualities that they all saw. You're friendly, affable, approachable, genuinely cares about the work she does and the people she works with, strong work ethic, and commitment to excellence that is unparalleled. I hope that your council will not hesitate to support her to the bench. And Joseph Bernard, 20 years. And he said that he worked with you while you were at the district attorney's office, and extremely fair, effective, compassionate, you know, everything. They all see the same qualities. And also Anthony Guglioni. I should be able to do those Italian names. Anyway, he's known you 15 years, and he's the district attorney in Hampton. And he talks about your commitment, your skill, your character, and passion for the law. And he worked with you and saw you as you led many students from the law school into the busy and often intimidating Springfield courthouse. Many of these students were stepping into a courtroom for the first time. And I was, I was very impressed with that you take them right into the courtroom, that they work with you. What a wonderful experience. This is, you are in 22 years, this is the first nominee that I've seen that they've done that. So in all of this pro bono and caring about people, you've got it all. So anyway, I just want to say, we talked about, district attorney. Why didn't you go to the Superior Court? And I think it all rounds up back to the People's Court, isn't it, huh?
It does. It's where I've been at home for 27 years about, so
Right.
it's what I
right.
know.
Well, I hope that you'll find a court home closer to home and you don't have to travel, 2 hours
Thank
like
you.
you had to meet me.
Thank you.
But I'll tell you, I didn't want to take a lot of time with you, but it's deserving. And I wish I could read every word of these letters because they really are genuine. These are people that know you. It isn't that they saw you once in a courtroom, So I'm very happy with your experience, everything. So I think
Thank you,
I got
Councillor
shocked
Devaney.
before they, what happens? They'll get the hook.
Can you hear me now?
Thank you, Mary, for your patience.
No problem. So I can see you, you can hear me. We're gonna call on Councillor
I
Kennedy.
love Zoom.
Hear her. Let me just text her, tell her we can't hear her. Old people do it in these settings. We text her. Okay, I was.
Can you hear me now?
But he's not here. So I'm gonna ask you a few questions.
Do you want me to
Only 3 of
show her
us.
your cell phone?
Excuse me, if he comes back, I might stop and let him ask questions. He will be back. If he
Okay.
doesn't, I'm gonna interrupt myself and let him go first.
Okay.
Anyway, I have to tell you something.
Uh-oh.
As I'm listening to you, and as I look over your material, we had a long talk on the phone.
We did.
This is one of the issues I raised. I'm still seeing a prosecutor coming across. I'm not seeing somebody who's taking that hat off. Even when I look at all of your writings, you spent most of your career as a prosecutor and continue to be a special prosecutor, right?
That's correct.
Up to this day.
That's correct.
And I'm gonna interrupt because I told you I'd do that if
Okay.
Councilor Cafaro came back in the room. So I'm gonna let him go first. And then I'm gonna finish what I started, so you can worry about that for the
Thank
next
you.
5 minutes.
I appreciate
Start
that.
sweating bullets.
I am.
Huh? And I do have one very important question to ask you at the end of it that frankly is going to swing me one way or the other on how I'm gonna vote, but if
Okay.
you give the correct answer, go ahead.
Counselor, why am I bothering to ask questions? Because I know your important questions coming up soon.
All right, you can leave.
Maybe I'll just be brief. Good morning.
Good morning.
Have you heard of the Emerging Adults Court of Hope?
I have.
What do you think of it?
I think that it's putting the emphasis on trying to get people diverted from the criminal justice system and trying to be supported, giving the support needed to draw people away from criminal activity. I know that we have it in Springfield. In fact, I met the director of it. She gave me her card. She wanted to come to the law school and talk to the law students about it, but I haven't hooked up with her yet about it.
And why do you think that that's a important pursuit with younger adults?
Because anytime we can divert somebody who doesn't necessarily have the resources or the support at home or in the community away from criminal activity and understand the why they might be where they are and the position they are and the poor decisions they may have made, and help them learn to make better decisions to keep them out of the system is beneficial to them, to their family, to the community, to the court system.
Does brain development have to do with their ability to make decisions?
I think it does.
And how does that play into the discretion of a judge?
Designed for, I might get the ages wrong, but 18 to 22 or 24-year-olds. They're in this pod without the general population, with one or two older people, older inmates with them as mentors. And it's for that exact reason. That's why the sheriff in Hampden County does that, to put the focus on, let's get them away from everybody else. Let's see if we can help develop.
Through mentorship and things.
Yes.
And actually, a couple weeks ago, when we had the commutation hearings, we heard a lot about the two gentlemen who received those commutations and the work they've done. In a general sense, are you aware of brain development, that the brain isn't fully developed until the mid-20s?
I'm aware of those studies, yes.
So how do we, you talked about mentorship, the proactive diversion. How do we, is there any way to deter poor decision-making and behavior in a young adult?
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Well,
And I'm thinking in terms of like the judge's discretion around balancing deterrence and public safety. I'm sorry, Counselor? Yeah.
okay. I thought she said I had poor decision making. What she said, I heard something.
Wasn't me.
I think that obviously deterrence is a huge part of criminal law. We don't want to have repeat offenders, but the way we get to that does not have to be jail. It does not have to be a jail sentence. And I think one of the biggest things that's lacking for people who have addiction or mental health issues or our youth is that they don't have the support they need. The people telling them, you're doing it right, you're doing a good job, here's another way or another place you can go, instead of into the behavior that they're doing that is criminal. So
Because I'm sorry to interrupt, because I still hear about like folks being put into corrections facilities as a forced detox. You know what I mean? And I don't see that as having any pragmatic purpose.
now when somebody has an addiction, it's not going to help them. It's not going to reduce the recidivism rate.
Right.
It's not going to deter them, because if we don't deal with the underlying issue, it's cyclical. It's going to happen all over again.
And I appreciate that you are interested in reducing recidivism
Yes.
as a practical matter. So I do have a question I'm curious about on the drug driving report that Councillor Devaney brought up. And like I said, it's more curiosity. I saw one citation that I tried to follow, that 20% of crashes are caused by drug driving, which like seemed very high to me. Does that seem high to you? I mean, your experience in the courts?
It does. I can tell you that in all my years, probably well over 90, if not 95% of the OUI cases I've had have been alcohol.
Right.
Sometimes a combination of
Right.
alcohol and drugs. So that does seem high. Is that the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration that I cited to? I hope I did.
Yes, and they were citing somewhere else and I lost the chain, but
I get that.
it just seemed high to me, because since actually, I'd be curious to see the numbers, because I don't know them, since we decriminalized cannabis in Massachusetts, what's happened on our roads. You know, I know the pandemic paradoxically led to actually more accidents, right? Or more fatalities. Is that accurate?
That very well may be.
Um,
And again, those statistics, I wrote that article maybe 12, 15.
no, I know these are dated numbers.
Thank
So, but on the same and again, that point was my curiosity, not,
Right.
so, the art, and again, I know this is old, but I'm curious. There's a discussion of DREs, the drug,
Recognition. expert.
recognition experts, and it kind of alluded to a 12-step evaluation. For the purposes of this article, it wasn't necessary, but it didn't talk about like specifically what those might look like. And I'm just curious, like, do you remember any of the,
Do.
what does it look like
A lot
on the
of
road?
them are, observations. So one of the steps might be looking at the person's appearance, looking at their pupils,
Mhm.
performing field sobriety tests, traditional field sobriety tests, their coordination, their balance. Asking them questions about orientation. Where are you? What time is it? How much time has gone by? All of
Yeah.
those steps, which culminate on the last step, typically with a blood or breath sample or urine sample, if need be. And that was one of those issues that I highlighted. And in Massachusetts, we can't get a blood, breath, or a urine sample from someone if they don't want to give it. And
Right.
therefore, all those other steps make the testimony, if the judge so determines, inadmissible in court.
Right, which is a practical concern, right? For me, I don't love the idea of compulsory blood samples, but
Right.
I do understand the conflict that arises here. I just get concerned, and I know this isn't something you are advocating, but I am concerned about how the discretion is exercised to get to that point to ask for that sample, because I feel like there's a lot of room for subjectivity and et cetera. So, and this brings me to my last point. The buzzword is implicit bias.
We talking about marijuana again?
I can't remember, Counselor. So the buzzword is implicit bias that we hear in implicit bias training and da-da-da, and it's one of the responses to what we know about sentencing disparities. But what does it mean to you?
So to me, implicit bias means that I was raised and exposed to life differently than other people, and that without even knowing it in my head, I probably have some unconscious attitudes towards people for whatever reason that I'm not even aware of, right? And not because I want to be prejudiced or biased against an individual or a group of individuals, but they're there somewhere. And I think what the buzzword does for us, implicit bias, is tells us, listen, we need to stop and take stock here. I need to self-reflect and figure out, do I have this? I mean, I know I do. We all do, right? Do I have some type of implicit bias that I'm not even aware of? And how can I address that? Identify it first. And then it means that I need to combat it. I need to realize it exists, be aware of it, and not allow it to control my decisions.
So, so in the instance of comparing someone who is battling addiction and who commits a robbery or a theft to feed the addiction, one person could do it in their neighborhood and engage law enforcement, and another person in a different background could steal from their family or whatever and maybe not get referred to police. So when the first instance ends up in court and the other doesn't, how does bias play a role in that? Is that something for a judge to think about? To think about this person with the identical behavior who doesn't land in court?
I think it is. I think it's something that you have to consider why the person's there. And you said this person has an addiction, and regardless whether they are taking from their family or taking from a stranger, it's the same act. And maybe the family didn't refer it because they want their loved one to be, to not be arrested, obviously, but to get help. And it comes right back to that support network or the lack of support. If this other person doesn't have that, then the courts need to step in and they need to make sure that they're fashioning a sentence where somebody gets that support.
I'm really glad to hear that. And I think it's important in the district court. I know that we are compelled to treat children in the juvenile court as a surrogate parent, essentially, the state is. And I think it's important to think about that, especially with young adults, but really anyone dealing with mental health issues who need treatment and not incarceration.
Right.
Thank you for your time.
Oh, no.
Now,
Can everybody hear me now?
Oh, no.
I got to take some more notes, though.
No, no.
So I'm ready. I did my homework while I was waiting. As I started to say, when I read through your paperwork, I'm seeing a prosecutor. When I hear from you today, I'm hearing from a prosecutor. That's what's coming across from me. I talked to you about that on the phone.
You did.
How are you gonna take off that prosecutor's hat? Because I'm still hearing it, okay?
Yes.
You were a prosecutor most of your career. At some point, you started to teach this clinic at New England where you supervised young students doing defense work.
Right,
But during that time, you continued to be a prosecutor, at least for part of it.
for part of it.
Yeah, and I'm having trouble reconciling that. I don't know how you can do both like that. Are you in the same court as a special prosecutor where you're supervising clinical students?
I don't go into court with the students and supervise them, so there's no conflict of interest there.
Yeah, so you wouldn't be, when you were doing the clinical stuff, you wouldn't go in the court?
When I was doing when I do the prosecution, I'm in the court with them.
No, I understand that,
Okay.
but when you were supervising
For the sabbatical, I was. For the sabbatical, I represented indigent clients with a bar advocate. When my students are doing the defense practicum, I'm teaching them in the classroom. I'm helping them with their cases.
But you're not going in
I'm
there.
not going in with them because I don't want there to be any appearance of a conflict and go in.
You're doing the special prosecution.
Once a month before, I would be prosecuting and then switch to
But there
defense.
is a conflict.
There would definitely be a conflict.
But there is, whether you're in court or not. I mean, you're in the same court prosecuting people and at the same time helping people defend people in the same court. Isn't that a little conflict?
I don't think, we have a firewall to make sure it's not the same people or the same cases. And I don't think it's impossible if you understand the justice system and you want due process to be across the board and you truly talk the talk and walk the walk, to do both.
One of the things that I've seen over the years, I've been doing this a very long time. Not quite as long as Councilor Jubinville, but pretty close, okay? And, you know, when I talk to prosecutors, and I have obviously many friends that are prosecutors. I've supported many prosecutors getting on the bench, absolutely. But when their whole career has been that of a prosecutor, they all say the same thing to me. He says, no, I get it. I get what it's like to be on the other side. But you know what? They don't, okay? When they think they do, and they're very sincere about it, but they don't. And when I talk to people who were prosecutors, then became defense lawyers and judges, and I've actually had these conversations, they will tell me, I thought I got it, but I didn't, okay? Until you're standing in a courtroom representing a defendant yourself, I don't think you really get it. Have you ever stood in a courtroom and represented a defendant yourself?
Not by myself, with another bar advocate. And that's exactly what I said to you on the phone. I thought I got it. I thought I got it until I started working on cases of indigent clients and talking to them and their family members and their loved ones and realizing, you know, as a prosecutor, you don't necessarily think about all of that.
That's
But
my point.
Somebody is, their
That-
life is in your hand and they're looking at you to protect their right. You are their one person between them.
That's exactly my point, is that
Was eye-opening to me when I, for that brief period of time, got to do it. And it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it right now, that, yes, I do get it. Do I have as this distinguished and long career doing defense work as the two of you? I do not, but I got a glimpse of
well,
it. And-
Councilor Jubinville's distinguished. I'm not that distinguished in terms of my career.
But it was enough to give me goosebumps to think
I'm
about.
kind of a
the from
scrapper
experience.
out there, you know, I can sort
Yeah,
of
we
a
gotta
bottom
guess
feeder.
that.
But when I look at I haven't read your articles, okay? I am curious, I might, because my curiosity has been piqued. Unfortunately, I already had my vacation, so I would have read them at the pool or at the beach, but maybe next vacation. But I'm seeing, at least in terms of the titles and the things you said, it's kind of the point of view of a prosecutor coming across, right?
Yes, definitely. That's the titles of them for sure.
Okay, because you not just haven't been a prosecutor, you also taught at the Criminal Justice Training Council as well, right?
Right.
Who trains new police officers.
Correct.
Where did you do that?
Where I've taught
They have different locations where they.
mostly originally in Agawam, because that's where it was. And then
Right.
it moved to the campus of Springfield Technical Community College. And
Okay.
so they have and it's people across the street.
No, I know people have taught there, you know, I know that Judge Fitzpatrick taught there for a while, my friend Judge Fitzpatrick, and I think John Sheff did for a while.
It still does. I believe,
Yeah, I
yes.
think he still does, was my friend as well. I met him when he was a young prosecutor. We were both young then, and we used to butt heads, and really butt heads. And over the years, we've become very good friends. But John's still a prosecutor, and he hasn't done it for 30 years, okay? So that's my concern with you, is what's going to come across when you're on the bench as a prosecutor. You know, my friend, Mr. Jubinville, always points out that lawyers have a tendency to talk about judges. Did you know that?
I did.
Yeah. Occasionally, they'll talk about whether they're a prosecution-oriented judge or a defense-oriented judge. How can I be assured that you're not going to be a prosecution-oriented judge?
Because I think I've said this in another interview, and I thought about this. My goal is to have somebody say, you know what, we got sent to Cafaro and decide, well, we can go bench, because Cafaro's like a jury. Cafaro will listen to both sides of the cases and look at the credibility and come up with a verdict. That is what I aspire to be, because I sit in court and I say, oh, we got sent to this judge, prosecution. We got sent to this judge, defense. I don't want that as a reputation.
You said something that bothered me because it earlier, because it strikes me as how your ruling would come down.
Okay.
You were talking about DREs, you were
Right.
talking about the 12 steps, and I happen to be very familiar with the 12 steps,
Right.
having cross-examined many DREs
Right.
over the years. And you said, you know, you don't get to that last one, the urine, the blood test. I think it's a urine test is what they talk about it, where they're trained primarily. And the guy at that point, or the woman at that point says, no, I'm not giving that. Okay. And you said whether it's admissible, that depends on the judge.
No,
Is it admissible?
No, in Massachusetts, it's not admissible.
Yeah, it shouldn't come in at all.
No, but the articles look federally too.
But a lot of judges will let it in, right?
As
And
of
they'll
right
say,
now.
well, you can cross-examine on that.
I've never gotten it in myself.
Good.
I've never gotten it in.
Can you spread the word among your future colleagues that it shouldn't go in?
Never gotten the horizontal gaze nystagmus test in.
Nor should you.
Even when I've had a
Which-
doctor on the stand.
But I want to talk about the DREs.
Okay.
Do you think it's a valid way of assessing someone?
I think that, I think it's a valid way of assessing whether it means the end all be all that somebody's under the
Well,
influence. No, it's
people think it
subjective.
is. My friend, the governor, is pushing to have more DREs put on the state police. I have an opinion of it. I think it's junk science. I think it's police officers teaching police officers how to figure out whether someone's under the influence of drugs, who aren't, going to a 2-week class. They're not medically trained. I think I've cross-examined police on that. I think the only medical professional that comes in when they're teaching the class is like an ophthalmologist or something like that, and nobody else. And it's cops teaching cops about what this drug is, what that drug is, and what this drug is, and the effects of it. That doesn't make them experts, in my opinion. Do you think it makes them experts?
Not necessarily, no.
I think it's junk science, but people are getting convicted of crimes based on that junk science. Right?
I see your point.
She sees it, but she didn't agree with it. You talked about the per se law in the 08 and how the federal funding required that, or they were going to pull out highway funds. I remember when that happened. Like I said, I've been doing this a long time. And when they passed the legislation making it an 08, I have a couple of problems with that as a measure. If I'm sitting there after a governor's council meeting and we decide to go out for a Christmas party, and I have a couple of drinks at the place, and I feel perfectly fine, okay? I don't feel any effects of alcohol at all, right? And I get stopped by this mean state trooper who gives me a breathalyzer, and it comes out 08, and I'm shocked. How did I know I was in 08? How are you supposed to know you're breaking the law? Because a lot of people that are in 08 do not feel the effects of alcohol. That's been well established, right? Do you agree with that?
Yes.
So I don't feel the effects of alcohol at all. I feel perfectly sober, right? And I'm violating the law. I'm guilty. I blew an 08, right?
Yes, well, depending upon what breathalyzer they use right now, because.
Well, we can get into it. That's another line of questioning I was going to get into, because there's been a lot of problems with the breathalyzer. And, I was talking to my friend Judge Brennan the other day about that. And who did, as you know, the Drager litigation with your friend Joe Bernard.
Yes.
But my problem with the 08 is also prior to the 08 coming in as the per se law, which came in a number of years ago, we had a statute that says if you blow over 0.08 or 0.10, or when I started it was higher, there was a presumption that you're under the influence. And the SJC came down with a ruling that said that's unconstitutional. That shifts the burden of proof. So we're going to read the statute differently. We're going to say you can only instruct the jury that there's an inference that you're under the influence. How is this different? How is this not shifting the burden of proof to a defendant that might require the use of experts or anything like that to counter it? How is that you've written articles on constitutional law, right?
Right.
How does that not shift the burden of proof?
It's semantics, right? It does shift the burden of proof.
I'm sorry?
It's semantics. It does shift the burden of proof. It does, if there's the statute is 0.08 or above, you're per se. You're right. The only way you can attack.
So you're going to
that-
let breathalyzers in
Am I going, well, not right now. I'm not.
where it's shifting the burden of proof?
Well, not right now, but,
Why not now?
because we're not, until the whole.
They're using them again.
We're not using them in Western Mass yet.
Still not using them yet? Well, good for Western Mass. They've started, Judge Brennan came down with a decision recently that said they're in, but we're still litigating. Your friend Joe Bernard's still litigating that issue. So anyway, and doing a great job, by the way. I'm gonna give him a shout out. Him and Steve Pinagiotis should get medals for the work they've done over the last 10 years. So you get my point about that I'm still seeing a prosecutor coming across when I read these articles. It sounds like your rulings, you're saying something different that makes me more comfortable. But when I look at these articles that you've written, when I look at your history, I'm still seeing a prosecutor. Not that I dislike prosecutors. As I said, I've had many friends, but my concern is always when they get on the bench, whether they're going to get it and get the burden of proof and get what it does to people. So that's important to me. On number 17 of your questionnaire, it asks about, what you've been doing basically. And you said, in addition to practicing law, I'm also a clinical professor at Western New England Law School. What did you mean by practicing law? Was that being a part-time prosecutor?
Yes, being in court regularly
Okay.
with students. That's exactly what I meant.
See, I read it.
I know.
Yeah. Huh? Right. Now, I have one more question for you that really will swing whether I'm going to vote for you, because I was asked to ask this question. And I was told what the correct answer is. And if you give the wrong answer, I'm not voting for you. Okay?
Okay.
We understand each other?
I understand.
All right. Which one of these is your favorite children?
We had this conversation.
One of them asked me to ask that. She told me the answer. Oh, I gave it away for part of it.
She's looking up at the ceiling, so she's the one that told you to do that.
Huh?
We had that conversation in the car.
I'm just telling you, that's what I was told to ask. And
Really tell them.
and we know the correct answer. So if you don't give the right answer, you're in trouble.
You have the right to remain
Councillor Hurley?
silent.
That's the correct, you know,
She can't hear it.
do you have children?
Huh?
Do you have children?
I do have 3 children.
Okay, so you know.
But my wife has a favorite. And we all know it. I got 2 girls and a boy too. We know it's the boy. Ask my daughters. Huh?
That was a horrible question to end on.
All right, Councillor Hurley, I don't know if you can hear me. I'm going to,
I can hear you.
Councillor Hurley.
she can't hear you.
Okay, I have one thing I want to say, just briefly.
2 seconds, Marilyn, because we're finishing up. Go ahead.
Me? Okay. I would be remiss if I didn't say this because I couldn't read every bit of the letter. But Attorney Heiser, who also taught with you, and I think this is very important because talking about prosecutor. Although Tina was a former prosecutor, she also works closely with the defense bar. In recent years, the law school, at the recommendation of Tina, started a criminal defense clinic. Tina teaches law students the in-class portion of the course, but has public defenders supervise the students within the courtroom. The defense attorneys, whether working with CPCS or as
Okay.
bar advocates,
I have to.
are
interrupt
willing
you.
to work with Tina and the law students. Working with the defense bar for this course strengthens Tina's ability to view cases from a
Hold on.
non-biased perspective.
Please.
I would be remiss if I didn't add that.
Thank you, Councilor Devaney. I'm going to recognize Councilor Mary Hurley, and I just want to say that we've discovered a solution. It took some really creative work, but it's called the speakerphone. Go ahead, Councilor Hurley.
I'm so frustrated today because for all the years I was on the bench, when I knew you as a prosecutor,
Mary, could you speak up? I have an iPhone too, so it doesn't work that great. Go ahead.
I'm very frustrated that I was not able to speak in the last few minutes of the hearing. But I can tell you, since the time I was on the bench and I saw you as a young prosecutor, you never had a prosecutorial mind. You had a mind that had kindness and fairness and justice. So, Councilor Kennedy, I want to assure you that, number one, she loves all her children, whether they know it or not.
Everybody has a favorite, Mary. That's all I was saying.
And number two, I can assure you that you will never have to worry about Tina Cafaro being anything but fair. And she's not going to have a prosecutor's mind. She's seen both sides of the fence. And I think she's just going to be a tremendous addition to our bench in Western Mass. And I'm very proud to have been here during her nomination. And it's no secret who I'm voting for next week. How about you, Councilor Kennedy?
Well, I already told her I was voting for her on the phone. That's why she didn't care that I asked those questions.
All right. Well, sorry I can't be there in person. You did a great job as usual, always prepared and knowledgeable. And at this time, I declare the meeting adjourned.
All right, thank you, Councilor Hurley. And I just want to say one thing before we leave. I want to congratulate Councilor Hurley for her years of service and the friendship we've had while she's been on the council. And she's going to be greatly missed. I did notice, Mary, that as soon as that the nominee's daughter, who's in law school, found out you weren't running, she ran over to the Secretary of State's office to pull papers.
All right.
What that's about. But I congratulate you and I thank you for your friendship over the years. You've been a great colleague, and I'm going to miss you when you leave.
If you don't do what I want, even after I leave, I'm going to haunt you. So,
Mary, I can honestly say that I am afraid.
Thank you, Mary.
Pleasure working with you as well. Thank you. Take care, everybody. Bye.
All right, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Don't forget, I faked you.